Peace and welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Today, we got a lot of big conversation. The first one is what's going on with the latest between Russia and Ukraine. Russia has officially turned off the gas to Poland and Bulgaria. We talk about the implications of that on that part of the world in Europe, as well as here at home on American soil. We'll have that conversation. Also, we check in with our tech expert, Stephanie Humphreys, to give us the latest analysis about Elon Musk buying Twitter and its impact, not just on the technological landscape, but on everything else. We'll have the very, very big conversation about that. And then also later, we'll talk about a Florida man who is making an effort to ban the Bible. Yeah, for real. We'll have that discussion. So, a whole lot to get to. Stay with us. Let's get ready for it. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh my goodness, so many big things that we need to talk about. So I'm really excited to jump right in. First up, let's talk about what's happening in Europe, folks. Russia, the latest development in that conflict between Russia and Ukraine, it has now extended to other countries where now Russia has been responding to Western sanctions by turning off natural gas to some of its biggest, investors in this gas. And we're talking about Poland, we're talking about Bulgaria. And look at this, folks, the implications of this. Now, here's the thing about this situation. At least for Poland, even though the gas has been cut, it does not pose any immediate or dire threat to Poland. Poland has been working for many years on getting other suppliers of their natural gas. And as of right now, they're not in any, difficult circumstances that will prevent them from heating homes, especially as that part of the world will be going into the summer. So less gas will be used. So Poland is a little bit, they feel like they're at a good place where homes and businesses will still be able to be operating on. However, there is great worry and great concern throughout the 27-country European Union, where Russia has access to gas and supplies gas to many other countries. And so a number of countries are wondering, is this some sort of retaliation that Russia is committing as a result of the Western sanctions, as a result of the world deciding to turn its back on Russia, and as a result of the fact that the value of the ruble, which is the Russian currency, the currency that has been used for years as part of the European Union, is that value diminishing day by day because of Russia's aggression on the Ukraine. We're going to check in with one of our favorite professors who's been giving us his great insight and analysis about what's been going on with this war of Russia and Ukraine, and now breaking in other countries. Dr. Gerald Horn from the University of Houston is joining us once again to talk to us about this latest effort of Russia to keep fighting in the midst of this global decision, this global consensus that Russia needs to have its back, that Russia needs to be dealt with. Dr. Horn, thank you so much, dear brother, for checking in once again. How are you this afternoon?
Oh, it's all good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Doc, so Russia is turning off the gas, has turned off the gas in Poland, turned off the gas in Bulgaria. But these two countries are saying it's okay because we've been looking for other suppliers. But as you know, there's always that big if when you're talking about geopolitics. There is still some great concern about, how far Russia is planning to go in terms of disrupting any level of unity from other European countries, disrupting the sanctions that has been placed on by America and other countries. What do you make of this, Doc?
Well, it's very serious. And I think that people in the United States need to realize that we will not necessarily be exempted, because whether or not you can say that there's a unitary natural gas market, I think you can assume that the executives at Duke Energy and other US based natural gas providers will seize upon the opportunity to say that there is a unitary natural gas market, and that they will have to raise prices for those in the United States who use gas for cooking, for example. Now, fortunately for the United States, spring has sprung, and so we don't necessarily have to worry about keeping warm, but that may become an issue after October 15th. In any case, it's another signal that this crisis is rapidly spinning out of control. You have more and more talk from Moscow about being backed into a corner. In fact, what they've suggested is that when Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin announced the other day that the United States has decided that its objective is to weaken Russia so that Russia will not be able to do to Ukraine, to do to another country what it's done to Ukraine, the line from Moscow is that that's a reflection of the fact that Ukraine is not doing well on the battlefield, and
Right.
therefore Washington is moving the goalposts. However, when you start threatening a nuclear power with being weakened, well, then all bets are off. It seems to me we haven't faced a situation this dangerous since the so-called Cuban Missile Crisis of October 1962, when the then Soviet Union placed defensive missiles in Cuba because of a fear that the United States would invade its ally. And we're in a similar sort of situation today. Washington tells us to disregard these ominous threats about nuclear war and nuclear conflict in World War III, but I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, me neither, Doc. And you know, that's always. I don't even think that's like far from reality or from the realm of, you know, the options that are on the table. That is certainly a part of this conversation. But one of the things that I saw in this latest move by Russia was that President Putin has not been happy about not just the sanctions, but the value, the diminishing value of the ruble, the Russian currency. And as a result of that, he is, in what some countries like Poland and Bulgaria saying, they feel like he is blackmailing these countries to use only Russian-based currency instead of the dollar or the euros. Can you speak to that?
Well, I mean, Poland is obviously a combatant with regard to this crisis in Ukraine. Most of the weapons that are being shipped into Ukraine are coming directly from Poland after being shipped into Poland from the United States and points west. So Poland must recognize that it would be a bit too much for Russia to continue to keep Polish homes warm and keep the pots on the oven cooking when Poland is fundamentally waging war against Russia. I mean, they said that they prepared for this moment. So obviously they saw it coming. With regard to the currency, what Russia is basically demanding is that with regard to this valuable commodity that is natural gas, what you should do is set up an account at the Gazprom Bank. Gazprom is the third largest bank in Russia. It also is the natural gas producer. Interestingly enough, it's not under sanctions. So you set up that account, Mr. Poland, and you bring your dollars or euros to Moscow that then can be transferred or converted into rubles. It seems like a simple administrative procedure. If Poland calls that blackmail, well, I'm not so sure about that either.
Okay, so that's more of a technical thing versus a tactic of war.
Well, sure. And once again, this question of shipping all these weapons into Ukraine is becoming very serious. First of all, as I'm sure you recall from the Trump years, Ukraine has a well-deserved reputation for corruption. So there is a real fear right now that of all these weapons being shipped into Ukraine, the chiefs of corruption are selling these weapons, perhaps even back to Russia. And even if they're not, Russia has an eyeball on these weapons coming into Ukraine and are destroying them before they can get to soldiers on the ground. And then there's the recent report from NBC News, which tells some of us what we already knew, which is that the United States is supplying intelligence to the Ukrainians, which is helping the Ukrainians to attack the Russians. And of course, that makes the United States even more of a co-combatant than it has appeared to be. And I think we discussed on this program previously the remarks of Mr. Biden's comrade, Senator Coons of Delaware, who suggested that there needs to be U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine. The former Supreme Commander of NATO, Philip Breedlove, has made a similar statement with regard to NATO boots on the ground. So this conflict seems to be spreading like an oil spill. And like an oil spill, it will be very difficult to clean up.
I have to say, Dr. Horn, every time I talk to you, brother, I'm always like, it leaves me speechless, excuse me, because I'm just thinking to myself, like, this, I just cannot get past this. Like, this is constantly evolving and developing into an unmanageable situation. And what we're seeing right now is, I'm seeing like, okay, we're going back and forth over natural resources. If we're going back and forth over currency, I mean, again, the United States has just continued to be inched closer and closer to being the one that's going to be heavily involved in this conflict. This is not going to just stay in Ukraine. This is not just going to stay among the countries of the European Union. This is America is going to take full ownership of this whole situation.
In some ways, it reminds me of what happened with the Korean conflict, 1950, 1951. Recall, it was the United States and its allies that intervened in the conflict on the Korean Peninsula. China warned the United States not to edge ever closer to the Chinese border. The United States ignored those warnings. What happened is that then China intervened on the side of North Korea. A number of U.S. soldiers were killed. And now, as we speak, the most popular movie in Chinese theaters is a movie that recreates what happened on the battlefield of Northeast Asia over 75 years ago. And so now China is very concerned that its firewall, speaking of Russia, is under threat. Keep in mind as well that what natural gas that does not flow from pipelines from Russia into Poland or Bulgaria can flow from pipelines into China. So there is a danger, once again, of this conflict spreading. And like the Korean Peninsula 75 odd years ago, I don't think it would be wise to somehow create a situation where China intervenes to save Russia, which admittedly is not in the cards right now as we speak. But we're talking about a conflict that certain Pentagon analysts say could go on for months, if not years.
So let's talk about Dr. Horn, how this thing might escalate and how the United States might respond, because assuming nobody blinks here, right? Assuming that we're like at a place where U.S. and NATO countries, they continue to raise the stakes, they continue to provide more military support to the Ukraine. What's the likely next steps for escalation on behalf of Russia to deal with this? How next will they try to pressure countries to stop the support of the Ukrainians?
Well, there's a real fear in Germany right now that Russia will turn off the taps with regard to natural gas going into Germany. By some measures, the fourth largest economy on planet Earth. You've already had a protest signal from Berlin that manufacturers and indeed unions as well are quite concerned about that. Then you have to take into account the French elections, where admittedly President Macron prevailed. But if you look at the first round of the elections that took place a few weeks ago, actually the parties of the left, including the socialists, and the Greens and the Communists and the other parties of the left, they got more than 50% of the vote. It's only through quirks of tabulation that Mr. Macron wound up prevailing. They are not necessarily in favor of this conflict. Washington will have to realize that Mr. Macron will have to heed the voice of his electorate. And then there are the upcoming parliamentary elections in a few weeks in June 2022, where you could have a left-leaning parliament emerge in France, which too would tend to handcuff France's ability to become involved in this conflict. And I haven't even mentioned what might be some of the most significant news of this week on the war front, which is that a high-level official of the British Ministry of Defense let the cat out of the bag when he suggested that the weapons, the arsenal that Britain is using and sending into Ukraine could be used to attack facilities on Russian soil, on Russian territory. And in fact, you might have seen some of the fires that have taken place at various Russian facilities not too far from the Ukrainian border. With that admission by a leader of the British Ministry of Defense, that is a signal to Moscow that this war is spreading, and it's a signal to the rest of us that the war is spinning out of control.
Oh, there's no doubt. Dr. Horn, no doubt at all. When I heard about this situation about Russia cutting off the gas and its impact on, and how it may, bring all of these other countries into the fold, I that's exactly what came through my mind. I said, this thing is spreading, and it's spreading like a wildfire. Taylor checked in from our YouTube page and said, what U.S. stockpiles are these weapons coming from? Is this sudden assistance to Ukraine depleting U.S. reserves? Is the U.S. being compensated for these weapons?
Well, compensated is an open question. I assume that Uncle Sam expects to be compensated somewhere down the line, but you're talking about a government in Ukraine now that's barely functional, with President Zelensky being a phantom, dodging from one office building in Kiev to another for fear of being targeted for bombing or assassination. In any case, in the Wall Street Journal just a few days ago, the Brookings Institution defense hawk Michael O'Hanlon did point out that U.S. reserves militarily are being depleted because of this effort to ship this arsenal into Ukraine. In fact, there is a suspicion now that China might see what's going on right now with the United States being bogged down in Ukraine as a marvelous moment to accomplish its long-term goal and objective, which is to seize Taiwan, the rebel island off the southern coast of China, which China claims as its own, but which is very close politically and diplomatically and militarily to the United States of America. This could be quite significant because Taiwan is a major manufacturer of these chips that we use for computers, that we use for smartphones, etc. If China were to seize Taiwan, it would bulk up the Chinese economy even more than it is today, where it now stands as the number 2 economy on planet Earth, number 2, pardon the expression, with a bullet.
Varnell checked in and said, hey, what are they doing in Europe? Why are we the lead? When does Europe do what they need to do? I don't think people have really thought this through.
Varnell for president. I mean, I think that's a very wise comment. You recall that for some years now in Washington, there have been complaints about free riding by the Western European nations. That is to say, supposedly the United States protects them from Russia, and then they are permitted and allowed to scoop up markets all over planet Earth, including ousting U.S. corporations from certain markets as well. From Europe's point of view, that's a sweet deal. From the U.S. taxpayers' point of view, or the U.S. voters' point of view, and apparently from Varnell's point of view, it's not such a sweet deal.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then Brother King Lee checked in and said, we must be wise. Please note a lot of information regarding the war in Ukraine about Ukraine is coming from England. So in my view, England is in a proxy war with Russia. How true do you see that to be, Doc?
Well, it's absolutely true. Not only England, but the United States and the North Atlantic countries, and not least Poland. But here's the problem with regard to Europe right now. And that is to say, you're seeing growing nervousness and apprehension in the locomotive of the European Union, speaking of France and Germany, about this conflict. Whereas you have the former erstwhile allies of the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, speaking of Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, they're like the tail wagging the dog. That is to say that they're getting ever closer to the United States of America. They're Uberhawks wanting a more brutal and bitter confrontation with Moscow, but it's basically France and Germany that are picking up the tab. That's a situation that's bound to end in tears. The only question is when.
I don't know. Every time we have these conversations, Dr. Horn, I'm thinking to myself, all I'm thinking about is that I just don't know how to wrap my mind around it. It's so hard, and you see so many things, and you're hearing from so many different people. What do you advise folks that are watching today to just do to make sure that we are not getting, and I mean, you talked about this the last time, making sure they stay tuned to what these conversations that you and I have been having, but more importantly, just making sure that we understand the gravity of this moment and making sure that the information that we are processing is correct information.
Well, I would also suggest, as I think I've mentioned before, that we should make sure that the Congressional Black Caucus is thoroughly engaged on this question. Not only engaged about the battlefield, but supposedly we are concerned, and I hope it's true, we are concerned about those African students who are still being manhandled and roughhoused while they're seeking asylum in Poland. We're still concerned about the fact that Mr. Biden has suggested that the United States will accept 100,000 Ukrainian refugees and migrants at the same time that Haitians are being turned away at the Texas-Mexico border. Where is the Congressional Black Caucus with regard to these issues? It seems to me that part of our job right now is a Pan-African job, to make sure that when the elephants fight, the grass does not suffer. The grass, in this case, I'm afraid to say, oftentimes being poor Africans, who are oftentimes the victims in these gargantuan crises.
That's right. We're the grass. We're the grass too, Doc. We are the grass. We are the grass too. Dr. Gerald Horn, professor of African American history, race, and has been doing a fantastic job being our chief analyst on this growing situation with Russia and Ukraine, and now looks like the European Union and possibly the rest of the world. Doc, we'll certainly bring you back on, but thank you for your time today to join us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's get into some of the big details surrounding Elon Musk acquisition of Twitter. It has not been fully finalized yet, but with all things said and done, most likely he is going to be the singular owner of one of the country's and the world's largest communication platforms. How do you feel about that? We'll have that conversation with Stephanie Humphreys, who's the founder of Tech Life with Steph, and my culture crew member, Sinedu Nkwafor, who is an equity, diversity, and inclusion specialist to talk about that. We'll have that discussion up next. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the Culture here on Black Star Network. All right, so you've heard earlier this week that there was a huge deal that was being done. The deal to buy Twitter by Tesla founder and owner, Mr. Elon Musk. Now, there has been a lot of information about what the deal means, the impact that it will make, not just on Twitter Inc., but also on the social media platform and landscape. So we wanted to have a big conversation about this, and we wanted to have it with tech expert and author Stephanie Humphreys, who's going to give us some insight as to what we can expect over these next few months as the deal is being processed and it is expected to be finalized. Also joining us is Culture Crew member Sinedu Nwafor, who serves as a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist here in Baltimore. So Sinedu, Stephanie, Steph, thank you so much for joining us. How are you this afternoon?
Doing good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, Steph, let's start with you first and foremost. So this deal here, Steph, all I'm gonna say,
woo!
I'm trying to wrap up. First thing, how much was the damn company? Because I've seen like three different numbers, like 41,
he paid roughly $44 billion for it. The other numbers you may be seeing are the $21 million he put in of his own money, and then the remainder that got financed through Morgan Stanley. But overall, the total price he paid for the company was $44 billion.
$44 billion. And I read the reports that he raised money. He went to banks to raise that money. He put up some of his own money. So where's this? A lot of people were asking Steph, like, where is this money coming from?
Well, again, Morgan Stanley is one of the primary financiers, but then the $22 billion of his own money that he put up, he did it through leveraging his shares in Tesla stock. Right. So he sort of, I don't know if that's robbing and Peter to pay Paul necessarily. I'm not a financial expert, but he got the money, his part of the money from his Tesla stock, from liquidating some of his Tesla stock.
Okay, so that is one of the big concerns that people are having about how this deal is being financed, because they're saying in the Washington Post, they just did a piece on this yesterday talking about the Tesla value has dropped by more than double the cost of Twitter. This was put out, like I said, last night. And if Keenan, let's show that quote I have for that particular article, talking about Tesla stock. It said Tesla stock dropped more than 12%, bringing its market capitalization down to $906 billion. Like, that's not enough. Compared with more than $1 trillion previously. A steep decline the day after Musk and Twitter reached an agreement for the Tesla CEO to take ownership at the company. There's been, no, I'm going to say this, and then we go back. Musk has pledged billions of dollars worth of his Tesla shares as collateral for his $44 billion takeover of Twitter. If Tesla's value sinks, Musk could be required to shed some of his shares to meet his loan obligations, leading to a downward spiral in his net worth. That's all big money talk right there, Stephanie.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's all. You know,
I mean, he goes from being a billionaire to being a billionaire. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. But I wanted to put I wanted to put that up there because, I mean, the folks thought that his stock has dropped more than 12%. So we might have some Tesla investors watching today. But some people are very concerned that he's gotten too much stuff on his plate, along with SpaceX.
Absolutely.
He has his open AI company.
He got the solar panels, the batteries, the cars,
batteries. Now
Hyperloop, just the boring company. Like, a bunch of
what
stuff.
The hell is Elon Musk doing? Like, I mean, I get it. Like, yes, it sounds, and I think this is the part of the conversation I think we should really have. It sounds good on paper. Oh man, he's really doing it. Oh my gosh, he's such an innovator. He's a leader in all of these different, fields and industry. Boom, boom, boom. But it sounds like you're becoming a jack of all trades and a master of nothing. I mean, we know he can do electric cars. We know that. But Steph, and then I'm gonna go to you, Sinead. When we look at adding this part of his portfolio onto the plate, and then for his very, very ambitious goals for Twitter, it's like, can this man really deal with all of that?
I don't think so. And I think he's going to see very quickly how difficult managing a social media platform is, whether it's private or public. I'm saying it here first. I'm predicting it here first. I see this company being sold within a year to someone else, or taking it back public and letting, a board of directors run it or something, then bringing in some other CEO. Something is going to happen within a year, because I think he's gonna get bored very quickly with dealing with the headache of the day-to-day of running this type of company, and he's gonna bail.
He's going to bail. All right, Sinead. So when we look at how how Elon Musk is moving, one of the big things, along with all of his other, holdings and his other companies and assets, is his real commitment to creating a space that is going to be diverse. How hopeful how hopeful are you that he's going to be able to do that?
I'm not that hopeful on the diverse side, because I don't think that's what he does well at. But I would like to say, for lack of better words, a rich man did a rich thing. It's not new. That's how I feel first. I need to remind people that when Tesla, many people don't remember, Elon did not create Tesla. He put a $6.5 million and became the biggest stakeholder in 2004, and then he bought it out, right? They went public in 2010 or 2011, excuse me, and I think Tesla stock was about $17.70 a share. Tesla stock is now worth $880 a share. Last I checked. I think what people forget is that this man is a genius for many reasons beyond what people see. Remember, first of all, let's go medical real quick. You know that he has autism, he has Asperger's, and he's a high-functioning thinker. I think to a layperson, a purchase like this may seem crazy, like he has too much to handle. But remember, he doesn't think the way you and I think due to his autism. He thinks a lot different. And that's why this man, was able to get us to the moon cheaper than the government, who's been doing it forever. And that's why this man is able to run a solar panel company that's been making solar panels cheaper than what everybody else has been doing. And I do want to put into perspective that ownership does not mean that he's running it every day. Remember, Jeff Bezos has owned Washington Post for a very long time.
Yeah.
Washington Post has not theoretically changed its day-to-day operations. What I think, in my humblest opinion, same thing I said when Jay-Z bought a Spiro for 60-something million to start Tidal. Let's give this man a chance first and see what happens. That's my humble opinion.
That's different. I wasn't expecting that from you, Sinead.
I know.
I was not expecting. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was not expecting it. Okay, so you said let's give him a chance. Here's the thing about this, though, Steph and Sinead. My thinking is we've put so much hope, and I think we put a lot of eggs in a billionaire's basket in this culture, right? And in the New York Times, they just did this piece, which I thought was really, really thought-provoking, where they're talking about the level of inequality that we're facing. And I think this is what, like, we know for sure, and then Steph, you know this, tech giants, tech titans, they've been doing this for a long time. Jeff Bezos, of course, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, all these guys have been doing this for a long time, right? But and they've been putting out products and platforms that we have all come to grow and love. We've embraced them, and we find them and we love them. But then at the same time, when the conversation about inequality comes up, it's like they're not the way that we talk about inequality among them and us is just so far, like it just seems like we're worlds apart. And there is this hope that billionaires will come to save the day. Here's why I'm saying that, Steph. New York Times, they did this piece called A Billionaire's World. And in this piece, they talk about this level of inequality. Keenan, let's put that quote up on the stage, on the show. The deal, they said this, the deal is talking about Elon Musk and Twitter. The deal is the latest example of how extreme inequality is shaping American society. A small number of very wealthy people end up making decisions that affect millions of others. That has always been true, of course, but it is truer when inequality is so high. The deal is the latest example of how extreme inequality is shaping American society. A small number of very wealthy people end up making decisions that affect millions of others. That has always been true, of course, but it is truer when inequality is so high.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, but that's the way America was designed, right? Like, are we doing anything differently than we've always done in this country with this purchase? I don't think we are.
Let me answer your question. Let me ask you a question, Steph. No.
Exactly.
No.
My issue is, though, well, I have a couple. The idea, first of all, the idea of free speech, and Elon Musk has proclaimed himself a free speech absolutist. And can we first just baseline what that actually means in our society? Because he's been using, I think, that particular point as his top PR spin for justification for buying this company. And it's disingenuous at best, because people just don't understand what it means to have free speech in the United States of America. So, I mean, if we could just, give a quick 9th grade civics lesson, before we move on, the First Amendment just says Congress shall make no law. That's it. You know what I mean? The government can't curb your speech. The government can't prevent you from assembling. The government can't do these things. Companies can do whatever they want. Other people can do whatever they want. Just because the government can't do it doesn't mean you have the right to say whatever you want, whenever you want. And he's gone on record as saying, as long as the speech isn't illegal it should be allowed. And that is just super, super dangerous rhetoric when you're talking about incitement to riot and, threats and harassment to, marginalized communities that can be coded in a way that doesn't necessarily, cross the line of legality, but is still harmful all the same. So, I just don't think, everybody is waving their American flags right now, jumping on this free speech bandwagon, happy that they will now get to say what they want to say with impunity. And that's not necessarily a good thing. It just ain't. And the idea that everybody has become this free speech champion is really disheartening, because it just illustrates a fundamental lack of understanding of what that actually means.
Here's the other disheartening point about this, Sinedu, is the fact that, one, we have, free speech is a very, very complicated principle when you have a country as diverse as the United States of America. And also when you already have laws on the book that protects free speech, that protects certain types of speech, right? And so now we're talking about, Elon Musk brought it into the space. He said that he plans to operate Twitter the same way that it matched the laws of the country. And it's like, that ain't the same thing. That space is not the same thing. Twitter space and the laws that run this land are like apples and oranges. So that's one concern. But then the other concern is the fact that the inequality that we're seeing in this country is so dire and so detrimental that it takes away the power of the citizen, of the constituent, to think for themselves. It takes away the power of the constituent to want to believe in their own self. Am I wrong in my assessment on this, of this, Sinedu?
No, you're right. And this is the part of the whole thing where I laugh at him when he says the free speech, because this is where I go to the left with him, because you're a white male talking about free speech and it's important. Right. And it's like, you left South Africa being a white male, not knowing that a black person in Soweto could not be speaking of free speech. But again, it's cute because you're white and you're male. So you can just say the idea of free speech and not knowing its ramifications. And the reason why I think him saying the free speech is all BS and trolling is because that exact example that he gave of speech of the country, and I want the laws of like Twitter to match the laws of that country. If that was the case, when he sent those Starlink modules to Ukraine, he would have also sent it to Russia as well, right? But he didn't. So I think in his mind, he thinks that, I'm letting everybody be free. But once you think about equality in speech based on race and socioeconomic status, like, I don't think he quite gets that. And I will even go further to say when we think about these public citizens, whether it be him with Tesla or Sundar Pichai with Google, I always think about these people that created these innovations that control or have a huge impact in our everyday life. They also filled in gaps that governments refused to fill.
With gaps, because a lot of these platforms, were developed under the principle of being able to connect with family and friends, Facebook. You can create any type of videos that you want, basically like YouTube. Or for Twitter, it's like, hey, say what you need to say in a short character set. You can speak on anything that you want to. But the government, and I'm saying here in the United States, you can do that without government intervention. To Steph's point, you don't have to have these platforms to speak out on certain things. You don't have to have these platforms to connect with people.
You don't, but it's two things. One, it's a higher cost if you're speaking, if your name is Farajii Muhammad and not John Williams. You know what I'm saying? It's a higher price to pay. Hence the point. I'm just curious, if Elon Musk was a African-American multi-billionaire, y'all think they would have sold that to him? That's what I'm saying. Like the point that we all know the answer to that.
Right.
The point that I'm getting at when I say vacuum is, yes, we have freedom of speech, but we know freedom of speech comes at a high cost. The internet has become a place where people could express themselves. And I believe that freedom of speech is important, but I think it is damaging when truth, this is the thing, when speech and truth become an issue where just because I said it first and just because I have more viewers and followers, that this is what it is, you know.
Oh man, please.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
News,
Yeah.
Marion Williamson was on The Breakfast Club, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, and she was saying back in her days, breaking news was actually breaking news. But now it's about who reports things first, because whoever reports first is who you believe. And quickness in reporting has nothing to do with factuality in what's being said. And I think
that's right.
That's where these spaces have become places, online town halls, as he said, or town squares, where people can create these realities with quote unquote less of a cost that they can do in real life. But then there's consequences. And I think that's what Elon needs to understand, that there's consequences, and free speech doesn't always work with everybody, especially people who are of the darker hue.
That's absolutely right. Steph, what's your take on that?
It's absolutely right. And then, you know, I made some notes for myself to sort of pick apart some of his arguments for why he felt like he wanted to, you know, take over control of this company. And part of that, when we talk about free speech and who it affects, and, you know, part of that is the misinformation that is going to now be able to propagate freely on this platform, because one of the things he wants to do is to make the algorithm open source. And, you know, all that's going to do is give the people spreading disinformation the cheat code to spread more of it, you know. And it's just like, why? And I can't understand, you know, he's using the idea of transparency to justify doing that, you know, saying maybe people will trust platforms better if they know how the algorithm works and everything. But all it is going to give, like I said, the people who spread disinformation the cheat codes. And I think the average person, unfortunately, thinks about the spread of disinformation as their Uncle Jerry sharing a tweet that was wrong. But it's not that. Disinformation campaigns are lodged by entire countries against other countries. You know, they have teams of people whose job it is to flood the internet with as much propaganda as possible to sway our opinions one way or another. And they use these algorithms to do it very, very effectively. So now if you go and make the algorithm open source to where everybody knows how it works, how much easier is it going to be to game the system to continue to spread that disinformation?
That is going to be one. I think that's going to be a pivotal question. One of the big challenges that's going to be facing Elon Musk and Twitter, because if you do that open source algorithm, I mean, you're opening up. I feel like you're opening up Pandora's box.
Absolutely,
you open up the floodgates for all types of stuff. And what I see in this effort to free speech, and we're going to take a quick pause, but when we come back, it feels like anytime someone comes to the people, noble ideas, noble principles are put out there to the forefront, but then behind those noble principles are nefarious deeds happening. You know what I mean? Like there are these noble promises. There are these promises of liberation. There are these promises of personal expression. There are these but then you're like, you know, Trump, and I'm just letting our folks, Trump promised the same thing with Truth Social. He said the same thing. Oh man, these platforms are restrictive. You won't have the chance to say what you really want to say. But then you're like, this is coming from Donald Trump. Like, he doesn't have a track record of being one who is open to other people's ideas, or he doesn't have a track record of one that is going to be willing to listen. So it's always interesting to see that people that quote unquote wants to try to be innovative, and they're trying to take us into a different, more, you know, promising direction, that they use these big ideas to serve as the way to get in, only to do the same thing that we've always promised. Trump did it for his campaign to become president. You know what I mean? I'm just tired of people using great ideas, great principles. Yes, free speech is great. You know what I mean? You should be able to say what you want to say, not with impunity, but with consideration. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could do. but then there's always some dirty dealing behind closed doors. And that's the big concern that I have. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to have more of this conversation with Steph Humphreys and Shinedu Nwafor to talk about what this means when Elon Musk, as he continues to pursue the, buying Twitter and the implication that it has. Post your comments on our YouTube page, on our Facebook page. Let's continue to have the conversation in the next hour. Also in the next hour, we're going to talk about a Florida man effort to ban the Bible from children. We'll give you the details of that. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back to the second hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we've been having a conversation about Elon Musk and the purchase of Twitter and the impact that will have on social media. We've been joined by tech expert and author Steph Humphreys. And also we've been joined by Shinedu Nwafor, my brother, and again, brother Shinedu, I apologize for mispronouncing your name. I don't like it when it happens to me, so I apologize to you, dear brother. But thank you so much for that correction. But Brother Shinedu is a diversity, inclusion, and equity specialist, and one of our culture crew members here on the show. I want to jump to some comments from our watchers and our viewers, because they've been talking about this, and I think that now, Steph, for example, we know that the news of the announcement of the sale hit Monday. Today is Thursday. Today is a Wednesday, and I think that a lot of people are just kind of like, it's finally kind of like settling in for a lot of people. Like, this dude just bought Twitter,
right?
So I want to share what people have been saying. Let me see here. Take a look. Okay. Varnell says, it's easy to say we should start this or that. I agree with you until you forget to mention the black tax that we get hit with. It can be done with the correct leadership, Uncle Roro. And that goes to your point, Brother Shinedu, with the fact that Elon Musk is a white, privileged man, right? He's coming into a space already from a place of power, quote unquote. Whereas if it was us, then guess what? We wouldn't have been able to buy no Twitter, man. Steph can't buy no Twitter, brother. You know what I'm saying? She wouldn't be able to do it. Sports actuaries say equality means different things to blacks and even fair-minded whites. Some fair-minded whites want the world to be a meritocracy. Most black Americans want to see equal results. And I think that's the other part of this. Folks, keep your comments going as we will take a look at them and try to mention them. But I think that's the other part about this, Shinedu, that as we're talking about freedom of speech, it's like, does that mean that Black people will have freedom of speech?
There you go. And it's funny that you say that, because in the midst of all of this, what Twitter was doing back when even Jack Dorsey was still CEO was that Twitter was moving into the space of Africa, opening up their office in Ghana. And what happened, what took place in Africa about 2 or 3 years ago, when the NSARS movement in the Lekki area of Lagos, Nigeria, and the government of Nigeria told human beings that were there that what you saw, you did not see. Block Twitter, try to block CNN and global news networks in saying that what you saw, you did not see. And more importantly, you can't speak up on, what you're experiencing. So is freedom of speech, when we think about it, and I think this is where Elon, in my humble opinion, I think Elon, because he's so rich, he means well as a person who is so far away from having to deal with the consequences of his speech, that he doesn't realize that your lay person, your everyday person, has those consequences, and those are not their experiences. And I think that's why it's important that we keep an eye when some of these big guys buy up these companies and give their reasoning, because as good as they may mean, it's like your meaning and the experience are two separate things. Yeah. And I just don't think, and I'll keep saying it, I don't think his wheelhouse is in communications and speech.
Oh, we know it's not.
And he should just leave it to the, and I'm hoping that he allows the professionals, because then again, Jack Dorsey still has good influence on Twitter. I don't think Jack Dorsey would throw his baby out to the wolves. And let's remember, Zuckerberg bought WhatsApp and Instagram, both huge multinational companies. So this is not really a new thing. I just believe that where we are right now, I think it is good. Let's use his point to his point. And since free speech is good and right for everybody, let's use that to challenge why there is danger in what he's saying. And let's see if he keeps your account up and see if he keeps that conversation going. I highly doubt it.
I want to, and Steph, I want to get your take on something, but I want to share with folks what Elon Musk has said. He said this in various iterations, but Keenan, let's post a quote about free speech that he put out there. This is from Elon Musk, folks. Check this out. It says, free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy. Check this out. Free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated.
Yeah.
Steph,
can I go?
Please go, sis.
I'm like, okay, let me just like
I said, that is PR. I'm going on record as saying that's all PR. And because he knows Americans like to imagine themselves patriots. They like to wrap themselves in the Constitution like a warm weighted blanket. And they like to lean on these ideals that don't necessarily actually exist to justify their actions. So, that's just spin. Honestly, that's just spin. And again, yes, free speech is vital to democracy, in the sense that you don't want the government trying to censor what you say.
Yeah.
Twitter ain't the government. Twitter is nobody's government. So, again, it's apples and oranges, and it's just a disingenuous comparison. But I want to go back to something Brother Chinadu, thank you. Yep. Say, because you giving Elon Musk a whole lot of benefit of the doubt with respect to his intentions around all of this, because I think if you look at his track record, it don't look like he just doesn't understand, the nuances of lay people and things like that. I mean, I'm not, attacking you. You made a very cogent argument, but when you look at the record, there are 4,000 Black Tesla employees suing him right now in a class action lawsuit brought on by the state of California for the conditions at the Tesla plant. They segregated those employees into areas they called the plantation. They don't get the same jobs, the same pay, everything else. And at the beginning of all of this, his response to all of this was for them to develop thicker skin, until they had to give that one brother $137 million based on the discrimination he was facing at that company. So, that's not just being tone deaf. That's being intentionally insensitive to another group of human beings' concerns. And then we could talk about pedo guy, the Thai, man in the man in Thailand that was trying to help the guys that were trapped in a well or a cave or something, and they needed divers to go get them, and he tried to swoop in there and save the day, and the guy sort of disputed what he was doing, and he called him a pedo guy. The guy sued him. He used his money and his legal team to bully this man into submission, basically, because I think he had an excellent case. He may have just had horrible attorneys, but again, he hid behind the idea that what he had said was a joke. That was basically the argument that his attorneys made, that it was a joke and you should have known it was a joke, and you should be able to take a joke, basically his free speech absolutism at work in that case. And when this man is losing his livelihood, that ish ain't funny. You know what I mean? It is like, what we doing here? And then, you can also look at the whole issue, the whole problem he had with the SEC back in 2018 as well, when he got fined for running his mouth on the platform again. So, the idea that, underneath all of this, overwhelming evidence, he's really a decent guy that just doesn't really, that's just a little bit out of touch. I just can't co-sign that.
Well, I think it speaks volumes because, Steph, at the end of the day, the New Yorker put out this piece about Elon, and one of the big things that they said is that, and I'm gonna share this with you. So I'm gonna give Sinead an opportunity to respond. Sinead, you want to respond to some of the things Steph would like to say? Go ahead, please do, brother.
No, listen. I'm not here to defend Elon Musk. I'm just seeing things in a multitude of ways. What I was really saying is more or less on the lines of, I don't think he's a champion of freedom or speech. So I think that part is where he needs to shut up at, because if you follow a lot that he does in his company, everybody literally be looking at him and say, bro, you are the GOAT. Just don't talk. Like it's your mouth that gets you in trouble. What I'm saying is in the terms of the quote unquote benefit of him owning Twitter is, I use Tesla as an example. Did you all ever think, because I know I didn't, did you all ever think that anybody could challenge the big guys, the auto industry, the internal combustion engine, and win? He did. And he did it in record-breaking time. So like, I use that as an example of tenacity to say that he can possibly do good things. But no, I don't think he is no MLK, fight for justice, fight for freedom. And I think he should keep quiet in what he doesn't know. However, when I said opportunity that the government doesn't feel, this is what I was saying. Nobody cared about Twitter. The government didn't care about Twitter until Twitter started to have an impact. Barack Obama was the first president to use Twitter and social media and chatting and all that as a presidential candidate back in 2008 or 7 or so. Like, now that there is truth in what he said. Like, it is the town square because it brings so many people together. What I'm saying is, no, I don't think he should be the harbinger of those conversations. But what I'm saying is there could be some benefits in his ownership. That's pretty much all I was getting at. But I respect what you said, Steph, as well.
I definitely understand that. Now, look, in the New Yorker, they wrote a piece about this, and they said, quote, Musk is what people sometimes call good at Twitter, a phrase that uses good descriptively, not normatively. In a word, he's a troll.
He's a troll. He's the biggest troll on the platform.
He's a troll. He said most of what he tweets isn't defamation or hate speech, but a lot of it is stuff that in a better world probably wouldn't command so much of our attention.
Right.
And the writer goes to the incident where him and Bill Gates were having a dispute, and Bill Gates came out and publicly said that he did not invest in Tesla stock. And as a result of that, Musk apparently went on to his tweet he put out a tweet, an unflattering photo of Bill Gates and a pregnant man emoji, and the words, "In case you need to lose a boner fast."
And see, that's the thing. See, and I mean, again, made my point entirely. You know, he can look at that and say, "Oh, it's just two billionaires, busting each other's balls or whatever." However, what came of that situation, and I don't think Musk tweeted this particular picture, but somebody, I know the picture you're referencing, somebody digitally altered that picture to put breasts on Bill Gates and made a case for trans bashing. And we know right now in Florida, and the whole "Don't Say Gay" and the woman that just got discovered as the Libs of TikTok Twitter account owner, you know, she, like, the stuff she's been putting out has actually influenced policy in Florida, because the Secretary of State down there says she watches this woman's Libs of TikTok Twitter to inform her thoughts about trans people. So, you know, the idea that he would do that and give someone else an opportunity to then go and digitally enhance the photo and then say, "Look, Bill Gates is transitioning. This is why we need to shut down you know what I mean? Like that's that type of power, and to not understand the type of, and I'll give you Sinead, the benefit of the doubt that he doesn't really get the level of influence he actually has, because maybe because of his Asperger's, you think nobody can be that stupid, but people, I mean, I want to say people can be that stupid, and the level of power that he has, and influence for somebody to take that exchange between the two of them, run with it, go digitally enhance the picture, and then make a case against trans people, all in the course of, less than 24 hours, is why I don't want him running this platform. He has he has more followers on the platform than anybody. He has way too much power. And now he gets to decide solely what gets to stay, what gets taken away, just having that type of autonomy when you don't have the necessary sensitivities and the necessary capability to understand nuance, to understand consequence, to understand the potential harm to other groups of people, because you're so far removed and detached from those groups of people. To have this kind of power without that type of empathy and compassion and understanding is so super, super dangerous. And that's the problem I have with it.
It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And that's why I asked the question. Hey, Keena, let's put that question back up there with that quote that we just shared. So just put it. Can one who trolls a platform be a defender of its free speech ideals? Can you really be that? You trolling, but then
he wants the freedom to troll.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't make sense. The tweet ain't tweeting.
The math ain't mathing.
Math ain't, but
the math ain't mathing. The algorithm ain't algorithming. It just doesn't make sense. It's like, bro, you use this platform and then you trying to deal with it. Okay, so we see all of this now. Here's what I think is the jewel of this part of the conversation, because we're on a Black network, right? This is a show that keeps Black people interest in our conversations, and we're unapologetic about our Blackness. Where do Black users, where do Black influencers on Twitter, where do they fit in all of this, right? That's one. And let me tell you, now I could be wrong. And so Steph, Sinead, if y'all tell me where I can find this information, because I scoured the internet and I was like, no one is talking about the impact that it might have on Black influencers and Black users. I think I found one article.
There was a piece on the LA Times. I just read a piece on the LA Times. I think I still have it saved, actually.
Steph, you might have to send that to me.
I'll tell you who wrote it. Hold on. Hold on. Give me
because I found.
Y'all go ahead. I'm gonna look for it.
We're gonna go ahead and find. All right, look. I found this one piece from the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I think that it popped up. I think
Philly
the writer.
Stand up.
Say it again.
I'm in Philly. I just said Philly stand up.
Oh yeah, Philadelphia Inquirer. So I wanna put this one up here. Let me make sure, Keena. Let's put that final quote up here from the Philadelphia Inquirer, and that quote should be talking about Twitter is not a good social justice company. Yeah. So this is the quote that was in the Philadelphia Inquirer talking about the larger issue of social justice. And because Black folks, we all in this space of talking about social justice, people ask the question, well, where does Twitter fall in on all of this, considering Elon Musk takeover? And they had quoted this one professor, or this one author and professor. She said, Twitter is not a good social justice company that has now been bought by a bad guy. And we know that. This is from Sarah Jackson, who is an associate communications professor at the University of Pennsylvania Annenberg School for Communications, and she is the author of the book #Activism: Networks of Race and Gender Justice. She said it's the users who made Twitter a place where activism could happen. It's the users who took the hashtag and connected it with each other to build a platform for social justice issues. It's too early to know what Elon Musk is going to do. It's the users, right?
The users.
So now I have to ask, okay, so given this, will Black Twitter have, take more of a stand if Pandora's box starts to open, where we're starting to see all types of hateful speech come up? If it's the users, will Black users feel empowered to be able to deal with the onslaught of all of these different types of speech? Sinead, what's your take on that question, brother?
I'm just not going to curse. I'm going to try my best. Of course. And the moment you talked about everything, as in it's the users that made it, and Black people, the first thing I thought about? I thought about during slave times, people not speaking the same language, but creating new languages. I talked about thinking about people not being able to read, but creating maps with their braids and locks to be able to get out of harm's way. I thought about music. I thought about what we the recent Black creators stopped making things on TikTok. The truth, when you are a creator, let's start there. When you are a creator, okay, you get to do whatever you want. Put your stuff on and take your stuff. I think Black people will have issues with it, of course, and they may take their stuff off periodically, but we'll find another way, as we've always done. If anything, I think you would think that white people would have gotten it by now, that the more you try to push us down, we'll even create a better idea. Soul food. We'll take your scraps and make it cuisine. You know what I'm saying? That's just what we do. I don't think it's something that we want to do initially, but that's what I think is going to happen. All those Black creatives, especially those Black creatives that are in the spaces of change. There's so many HBCUs that are involved with big companies like Netflix and LinkedIn. Those people who are creatives in those spaces, they will use their power to push their companies and corporations to advocate for them. But on the side, they're going to do their, I don't know if y'all follow this page. It's on Instagram. It's called, I think, Black DC Staffers or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it's the Black people who work for the federal government. And they created a whole meme page where they troll their typical workers. And it actually made a difference to the point that they were thinking about unionizing these folks. You know what I'm saying? That's what we've always
done. What we do.
So you're saying we're at a place, because I was going to ask Sinead, do you think that Black people should jump off Twitter? But you're saying, no, we should stay on there and organize more and much more efficiently than where we are. Because people say Black Twitter, and I'm just trying to think of Who is Black Twitter?
It's interesting. The column I just found it. It was in the LA Times 2 days ago. It was an opinion piece with Elon Musk in charge. It's the beginning of the end for hashtag Black Twitter. That's it.
There we go.
Erica D. Smith. Yeah. So, she kind of made that case, but I do think, we have to stay and fight the good fight, and we can't. And I think there are too many creators now on all of these platforms that have been able to make livings from these platforms, that have created movements from these platforms, and we're not just gonna stand by and let these platforms being taken away from us. To Sinead's point, we will figure out how to flip the script, real quick. But I think, we have to be there. We have to be present in order to do that. So I don't know necessarily that it needs to be sort of a mass exodus per se, but we just got to pay attention and stay woke. Hashtag stay woke. And,
let me ask you this,
that we're
Steph.
ready for the next flex.
What is the dog in for us in this fight? Like why should we quote unquote
why should
fight?
we stay?
Yeah, why should we fight for a space that we really don't have control over? Twitter
is still a very, very powerful communications platform. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, there's billions of people there, and there would be no Black Lives Matter without Twitter. So, like, the idea that you have the type of platform that can create that type of movement, we need that. Until we do have a platform of that scale of our own that we can use to create those types of movements. We still need the scale of that platform and the user experience of that platform and the interface of that platform, like all the technical stuff that makes Twitter easy to use and makes it what it is. Yeah. We still need that functionality of that platform in the meantime. You know what I mean? Until we get something comparable for ourselves, we still need the functionality to just communicate. And like I said, if we got to start braiding our tweets in a way that show the maps leading to the promised land, we'll braid our tweets that way and make sure that we can communicate with each other in a way that remains effective and showcases our best selves. So we gotta stay and fight.
I you know what, that makes a lot of sense, especially now when a lot of this is still young. You know what I mean? Like, this level of engagement that we have connecting our struggle to a social media platform. I would say what, Steph, is about 3, 4, maybe 5 years old, maybe.
If that. Like you know what I'm saying? It's still very young. That connection is still very nascent, and it can only grow and deepen, based on our interactions with any particular platform and our hope, but Elon Musk being Elon Musk, we hope that we don't get silenced, because if we do have free speech, we should all be able to use this platform, as effectively. Any person should be able to use the platform as effectively as anybody else. So we should be able to keep that conversation going.
Absolutely.
We just have to figure out how to drown out the noise.
That's
there's
the
gonna be a whole lot of that.
Woo! Oh my gosh! Oh my god!
If I could put in a 2 cent, Farajii.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
What I also like to remember is data. Pay attention, pay attention to what else is going on in the world. One of the biggest markets that Twitter is trying to move into is Africa. You see that Alphabet just laid down a pipeline that landed in Lagos, Nigeria. Microsoft is building this is an intercontinental underwater cable for internet. Everybody's trying to, because the revenue stream in America is pretty much set when it comes to internet, but it's Africa, it's India. And when you look at these places, you think about the vulnerable people who are using these are people that look like us anyway. And I think in those times, they'll tell you what rules they want. We saw that clearly with the Arab Spring. So I'm just waiting.
Based on my understanding of a lot of these African governments, like a lot of the countries in Africa, they are much more, I would say, critical of what type of data and information comes from America into their parts of the continent. You know what I mean? Because I mean, we saw the great resistance from everything from the COVID vaccine push to a lot of other things. There is a greater resistance that I think that African governments will put up a much more of a stronger firewall than what we see here in America. But I think that that's a great point, Sinead, that you have a lot of these tech companies that are spreading or that are looking into untapped markets, and Africa is still an untapped market in a lot of ways. because they're dealing with other, quality of life things, from everything from, running water to, and I'm not saying all of them. I'm not throwing shade on all African countries. I'm just saying that in some of these rural areas of the continent, they're still trying to modernize the space and modernize the ground. So I think that that's a good point. And it's crazy that they will probably making more of an effort to put social media there than they would a clean water filtration system. They'd be like, no, you need that. You need Facebook before you need clean water.
Farajii, real quick, a 10-second plug. The beautiful case for development, and the point that you're just making, is a lot of these African countries are going to they're withholding information. Do you know why? Because a lot of the people who are funding them, their internet, all that, are from China, places that do stuff like that. So if America, our great country, who cares about democracy, really gives a damn, then this is when they'll step in and say, you know what, we'll beat China at what they're doing. We'll give you all the same infrastructure and the freedom. The government is only going to move with the words of the highest bidder. So I think this is an opportunity in itself.
And you know what? I say this time and time again, Steph and Sinead do. If we want to see a change, we do have to organize. We can organize online. We can organize in person. But organization generates power in this country.
That's it.
If you're not organized, then it doesn't matter. Like all of this other stuff that we're talking about, like if it's always down to an individual, and that's what I wanted to kind of just say during the course of this conversation, that no one single man or one single woman is going to save all of us. That's not happening, and I think that that's part of our conditioning in this part of this country, because we want to believe that one man or one woman is going to set us all free. And it's like, nah, baby, you got to put in some work just as much as the next person, because that's the time that we're living in. That's just the time. Our unity is going to be very, very important. So if you don't see yourself as united with your brother and your sister in the continent, then it could go left very quickly. Steph Humphreys, tech expert and author. Thank you so much, Steph. It's always a pleasure to have you on. I got to bring you back on with some other development coming, because Elon Musk going to say something or do something.
It's going to be something. It's always going to be something.
We'll bring you back on. But folks can check you out. Where they can check you out at, Steph?
All around the web at Tech Life Steph.
There it is right there. Folks, Sinead is going to stick around with us for our next segment. But folks, we got to take another pause. When we come back, let's talk about a Florida man who is making an effort to ban the Bible from children. Yeah, I'll bring you to break down those details. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, let's talk about a Florida activist who is known to create petitions to local government in Florida for a lot of crazy requests. However, in a recent petition to public school superintendents across the states, Mr. Chaz Stephen has asked the district to, quote, immediately remove the Bible from the classroom, library, and any instructional material. He said, additionally, I also seek the banishment of any book that references the Bible. Now, he drafted this petition as a result of Governor Ron DeSantis' latest bill, which was signed into law last month, which lets parents object to educational material that may not be that parents may deem to be sexually explicit. Mr. Stevens goes on to say that the Bible, check this out, folks. He said the reason he wants to object to the Bible being in public spaces and being accessible to children, he said because of its casual references to murder, adultery, sexual immorality, and fornication. He asked the question, do we really want to teach our youth about drunken orgies? Let's bring Culture Crew member Shinedu Wakwafor to give us some insight about this. Shinedu. Look, I'm not throwing no shade because I got family in Florida. I'm trying to figure out. I'm serious. I'm really trying to figure out, brother. What the hell is going on in Florida?
I'm ready for Florida to be its own separatist nation.
What is going on? No, seriously, bro. Seriously. Like, I'm really, bro, I'm blown away when I keep reading story after story about stuff happening in Florida. And I'm like, damn, man. Like the wildest ideas. I mean, how can the home of Mickey Mouse be so crazy, Shinedu?
Man, every time I think about Florida, I think about a skit from the Chappelle Show where they did a racial draft and they were trading people from race to race. And I'm telling you, the black delegation, I just want to trade Florida for Puerto Rico at this point because Florida is wild.
Bro, I have never seen a situation like this. All right, so I mean, culturally, they are really going to war down there. Mm-hmm. They are really going to war right down there. But this story here, I wanted to bring it up because as much as we can kind of laugh about the craziness of it, right? We are in a very, very serious time because when you have a situation like this man is talking about banning the Bible. Now, I'm a Muslim, and I'm thinking this is wow, like whoa, that's what we're doing now. I mean, that's what we're doing now.
I mean, look, in my opinion, I'm seeing privilege being used the right way because the point that he makes is a good one, even though I don't agree with what he is, the theoretical idea of banning the Bible. But he's making a point, I think, to highlight the points that they're making with the banning of all of these children's books and don't say gay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think he's kind of giving them a taste of their own medicine. And they're not sure what to do because you have to explain based on what the ban is. You have to explain that his point is different and it doesn't make sense. And it disproves the law that DeSantis came up with in the first place, which I think is a great challenge. And I really hope they don't end up, quote unquote, banning the Bible. But the challenge is what I'm interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's trying to make a point because he was saying, like, you know, they just, and again, this is Florida, man. I'm telling you, whoever, if y'all living in Florida, I gotta see, and I might just ask my online culture crew, does somebody tell me when did y'all go to the polls for governor? Because that guy is wild. DeSantis, somebody tell me, please tell me, YouTube, Facebook, somebody tell me, when is the gubernatorial election for Florida? Please, because we gotta. They do have to do like a whole show just telling people, man, get that dude out.
Well, apparently, what's scarier is it doesn't matter when the next gubernatorial election is. What DeSantis wants is the presidency. He wants Pennsylvania Avenue. And that's the crazy thing. I think a lot of things that he's doing in this day and age, he's been crazy, but I think his craziness has reached pandemic levels, if you will. And I think what he is following, in my humble opinion, is that playbook of Donald J. Trump, of the crazier I get, the crazier things I say, the stronger that my base stays with me, because that base that he's going for in Florida, which is more than Orlando and more than Miami, we have to remember that those are two kind of semi-liberal areas. But
I'm about to say, yeah,
what he's really going for are your average day poor white folk who aren't of his class, but who they go off of the idea of you're a patriot when you hate everything that we deem to be un-American. Same way Republicans, no abortions, but they find ways to get rid of the abortions from their mistresses, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's the mirror in the face for me, and I'm curious to see how far he is going to go with this. And I'm glad that the guy who's bringing it up is white, because now we know it can go further than if a brother brought it up.
Right. Again, that's why I said that this is interesting, because he's saying, look, if y'all can go as far as to ban, in the state of Florida, they just talked about banning 54 math books. Sinead, I'm serious, bro. 54 math books that were claimed to have incorporated topics such as critical race theory. So Mr. Chad Stevens is like, look, I love math. He studied math when he was in college. So he said, how are you going to ban a bunch of arithmetic books? So he said, if you want to teach morality and ethics, do you really want to turn to a book that wants you to dash babies against rocks? He's talking about the Bible in the book of Psalms.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I mean, I think we're at a very critical place, because people are unsure about what to believe anymore. You know what I'm saying? And not just listen to media or going on social media or watching TV or stuff like that. Like we are all living in a time where you have to have a stance on things, right? You can't just be a spectator. You can't just be a bystander. You really do have to be very clear about what your personal politics is. This is something, Sinead, that I teach to young people all the time when I do when I do speeches and when I do engagements. You have to create your personal politics, and your personal politics come out of your personal values, right? The things that you deem to be important, right? And so if you don't have a clear sense of what your personal politics are, then you will be swayed and influenced by so many other things and so many other people, right? The wave and the tide of quote unquote liberalism or conservatism, all of these things will just make you lose a sense of yourself. And that's what we're seeing with, the GOP. And in some cases, we've seen that with the Democratic side, that they're this love for party over people, the American people, is so damaging, because it disrupts our very sense of being, quote unquote, one as a nation.
Is it really love for party, or is it love for power? Because one could surmise that
it could be. Yeah.
One could surmise that if not for the fact that Kamala Harris has a huge contingent of Black people that would vote with her bloc, that Joe Biden would have never chosen her to be the running mate. So this is the thing. I think I've said this about both parties, because what I realize is it's not about red or blue or green or whatever, because it all comes down to money, and they all act the same when money is involved. All of them. What I think the Republicans have become really good at is buzzwording. I'm not old enough, but I'm sure you remember the Ronald Reagan days on war on drugs.
My gosh, bro.
It's something that you repeat, but then when you sit down and ask, what exactly is the war on drugs? And you think about No, bruh. It was literally a war on drugs. Us sending guns to the Contras and getting pushbacks, and us buying and not being able to tax the weed. That was the issue, or tax the coke, because the first thing the Narcos shows you that when coke started moving through the streets, the issue was we can't tax it. And now the people who own the weed companies were losing out on money. So I say that to say, like, let's go back in history to the things that have happened before. This whole CRT thing is BS. But Republicans are great at taking buzzwords and turning it into a brouhaha of nothingness. Critical race theory, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't even exist because it only exists in such a niche area. But it's the buzzword. It's the buzzword. War on drugs. Critical race theory, weapons of mass destructions. Are y'all not learning? And in 20 years in the future, after it's all said and done, we'll come back and say that it wasn't self-evident. But it was too late.
Yeah. Let me tell you, Janae checked in on our YouTube page. Janae said, wait, rational people know it's the play for the young folk whose moral compass is off. We know how far off base passionate conservatives are with DeSantis. Reagan is turning in his grave. Well, see, here's the thing, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, Sinead do, but there are more people in this country that align their values to the Democratic side than the Republican side. Right? Agreed. But you still have a sizable number of people that are independents, right? And I think that when we are in this place that we're in, that we got to, I mean, it's like what we talked about with Twitter. As we said, that as I've pointed out, how that professor said, it's the users that make Twitter. It's the citizens that make this country. It's the citizens. It's us. Like we can look and be flabbergasted and shocked and awed by some of the decisions that our policymakers make each and every day that seem to be against our own interest or self-interest. But guess what? We still have the power. And see, this is the thing. Like I brought it up, this story of Chad Stevens talking about, I mean, this is obviously, he's like, okay, if y'all gonna go so far, he said it. He said, I don't have the votes. My job is merely to turn hypocrisy on itself and let the bureaucrats eat each other for lunch.
I love it.
So this was like, he's like, hey, well, if you're going to ban math books, if you're going to ban this and ban that, you might as well just ban the Bible. Because it's got all of that stuff that you claim that's not good for children. Why not ban the Bible? But I get it. But it's just the simple fact of look at where we are, that we want to see the leadership to eat themselves. That's how dissatisfied we really are, Sinead.
But you know, a wise black man that maybe will be in a book that is soon to be banned once said back in the 60s and 50s, be true to what you said on paper. When you think about what the Republican Party, for example, is and what they stand by, government getting out of the way of business, and now the government having a war on Mickey Mouse in Florida, right? It's the contradiction. And I think that is the point that this gentleman who's bringing this up is saying, do you all, I don't even think it's for the government, it's for the people, us, not the big guys, the hoi polloi, the everyday folk in the streets, for us to know that, hey, do y'all not see that you're getting played? But I think the insane part about it is it doesn't matter because the people are sheeple. Wise Donald Trump once said, I can walk into Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and nothing will happen. That speaks highly on how a lot of Republican lawmakers can say something that literally goes against their own best interest and still win. I mean, has Mitch McConnell ever lost in Kentucky? Even though Kentucky is one of the biggest states that gets in, what is it called? That uses a welfare, but they vote him in every time, even though he's against, it's people are going against their own interest. And I think this speaks of what we said in the last section, is because truth is being sequestered into who said it to me first, not who has actual actionable, checkable truth?
Man. No, because when we look at how crazy that situation is, and you're absolutely right about Mitch McConnell, the fact is that I mean, we can say Mitch McConnell, we can say Lindsey Graham, we can say Donald Trump, right? Like all of these individuals claim to be for the American, quote unquote, for the American people, but one, they're for a certain group of the American people, and then two, they're really not even for the certain group of the American people. They're really just for themselves, right? And if we aren't awakened to understand that, if we don't see that, like you got to be very, very clear about what your self-interest is. What does that actually mean? Because we throw that at work. And, Saul Alinsky, in his book, Rules for Radicals, he put it out there. He got a section about that. And he says, the section is called A Word About Words. Certain words are thrown out there into the lexicon of the American people, right? Self-interest, power, ego, all of these things, right? But if we don't understand what those words actually mean, and more importantly, how those words, how you as an individual, as a constituent, as a citizen, how those words affect you in your day-to-day life. And that's the place that we're in. I think that we're getting, just like Chad Stevens, we're getting to a point now that people are getting so dissatisfied. They're becoming so restless. They're becoming to get to the point that they're like, you know what? The way government is moving is not working for me. It's not working for my family. It's not working for my my coworkers and my friends and my neighbors. I mean, and government is moving so far away from where people's values are, where people's desires are. It's going to force, and I've said this before, but you're cultivating domestic terrorists. You're cultivating domestic terrorists. It's not, it's really not surprising that the violence that we see in this country is an effect of a bigger cause. You know what I mean? And I remember we had a conversation about an individual. And I'm trying to remember his name. We had a conversation. Oh, it was about the New York subway shooter. And the gentleman who is alleged to have shot up the subway just a few weeks ago, he had put out 450 YouTube videos talking about everything from what was going on in Russia and Ukraine, to talking about what was happening with Mayor Eric Adams in New York City, to talking about immigration. Like, he had become so dissatisfied on a host of issues that he thought the only way to deal with his dissatisfaction is through violence. And that's domestic terrorism. That's homegrown terrorism. And this country is going to have to really address that. What we saw on January 6th, homegrown terrorism. That wasn't terrorism. That wasn't China. That wasn't Russia. That was from Washington. That's from Hollywood. That's from New York. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's homegrown terrorism, man. And this country will never move forward, bro, if you don't deal with that.
And if you don't address it by what it is, because remember, the word white nationalism is still fairly new, as now looking at domestic terrorism, thanks to January 6th, because it took that. But do y'all remember 6-7 years ago when Black Lives Matter was inscribed as a terrorist organization? Can you imagine? And like I said, I think a lot of these homegrown things, I will give you an example. I campaigned for Jamie Harrison, who was running to unseat Lindsey Graham. This man outraised him financially. He was supposed to be a shoo-in. But when I went to those average everyday doors and I knocked on the door and I saw that average poor person living in the middle of nowhere with barely great electrical wires coming into their homes, and I said, would you vote for Jamie Harrison? They said, no, I'm voting for Lindsey Graham. It was my job to say, okay, thank you. But me, I had to ask, I said, tell me, please tell me what makes you vote? Because I said, I lied. I said, I'm kind of getting interested in Lindsey Graham too, even though I'm working here, but I wanted to get their true response to that because I've lived in Baltimore. I don't know what it's like being in countryside. And you know what I heard? I'll never vote for that nigger, even though this man even though this man is for my benefit, for as long as he's in black skin, I'll never support him. Tim Scott, you should be very, very careful, because they could be talking about you too. But the point I'm making when I bring this up is the well has been so saturated that freedom is actually enslavement as it pertains to this nation. That's why when people say freedom of speech, who has that ever actually worked for? Because what you're free to say is not the truth half of the time. And a wise man named Arthur Schopenhauer once said that truth goes into 3 stages. It is ridiculed, aggravated, and opposed. Then it is accepted as self-evident. And like I said about the weapons of mass destruction, by the time we realized that the war in Iraq, for example, or Afghanistan was BS, 20 years later, Lockheed done made money, all the organizations done made money, 2-3 new presidents have come in. And I say that to say we have to kind of get on the helm of attacking the truth and putting it in the face of the people and saying like, yo, do y'all not see this? But even then, like we see in Russia, people are telling Russians that this is an invasion on Ukraine, and the Russians don't even believe it. Scary times. Scary times.
It is very scary time. So my hope is that for Mr. Stevens in Florida, that people really, kind of see the satirical side of this petition, but more importantly say, well, yeah, that's true. And here's the thing about what we're seeing in this culture war. Who are we to say whether this history or that history is not sufficient? Historians and those who study history, they have the humility when they approach the subject, right? When they approach the facts, that their personal bias should be left at the door. That they should see things as it is, not just not through their rose-colored lens or their tainted lens, but they should see things as it is, and they have to report on that, or they have to organize those facts in such a way to tell the story of what happened at that time for a particular period of time. And so if you get into the space of saying this is not history, no, we don't want that, or we don't want this, or no, we can add this part in, and you start chopping it up, and you're trying to a la carte history to fit your agenda, or to fit your cultural leanings, it's a dangerous place for any country to be in. It's a dangerous place for any political leadership to be in. That's very dangerous. It's dangerous because at the end of the day, when you teach children, children are going to they're going to be the ones that either reap the benefits or suffer the consequences of how you handle history. That's children. We talk about it among Black children. When Black children don't know about what happened through the transatlantic slave trade, we see them suffering the consequences. When Jewish children are taught about what happened of the travesty of the Holocaust, they reap the benefits of that history. When Asian children learn about the history of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they reap the benefit of that history. And so you destroying lives, and you really disrupting your own future.
And Farajii, you can really only reap that history when, a wise honorable minister once said that there can be no justice without peace, and there can be no peace without truth.
Come on, Brian.
You reap those benefits when truisms are brought back to the forefront. But when you're saying that red is not red, it's orange, and yellow is actually green, and
right,
certain things didn't, because could you imagine, with the benefit of what the Jewish kids receive from learning about the history, do you see how heavy it becomes when someone says it didn't happen? They're on it. They're saying no, that's not true, because the history, there can only be one truth. There can be many sides, but there can only be one truth. And I think we're living in a world where truth is warped, truth is optional, truth is chopped up and mixed in a bowl with this, that. Like, it's very Chipotle at this point.
Right.
It's semi-mixed up with a slice of avocado. That's
right.
And that is dangerous, because by the time you may realize your truth, I keep bringing up the war in Iraq. By the time we realized there was no weapons of mass destruction, everybody already died.
Exactly.
Those monies that went to contractors were already spent. Weapons left in Afghanistan. We saw
brother.
that on TV.
Come on, brother. Come on.
What do I know?
Hey, you know a lot, Sinedu, and I'm glad that you shared it with us this afternoon, brother. I appreciate you so much for being a part of the conversations with us today. One of our fantastic culture crew members, newest cultures crew member, Sinedu. Thank you so much, brother. Continue to do the great work of diversity and equity and inclusion, and most importantly, just continue to be a source of light for our people. So thank you, brother Sinedu. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, folks, man. I hope y'all enjoyed the conversations as much as I did today. You know, everything from Elon Musk and talking about the latest what's happening in Russia. Folks, these are the conversations that we need to have, we should have, and we are having right here on the Culture on the Black Star Network. And that's why we ask you each and every day to make sure that you just like us and support us, because we want to continue to have these conversations. You know, we're talking about being unapologetically Black, unfiltered Blackness. Guess what? That's where we want to stay. So we need your support. Check us out, blackstarnetwork.com. Support us. Continue to support us. We're doing the great work. I can't wait to share with you some of the opportunities that we are working on to take the culture to the next level. We have been blessed. We're coming up almost on 3 months at the end of this month. The 1st of May will make it 3 months that we've been on the air for Black Star Network. And it's been a phenomenal journey, absolutely phenomenal journey. But I have so many big ideas, folks. I am so ambitious to make sure that we take this platform. We continue to bring you those strong voices to have these discussions. I just have so much that I want to share with you. And I want you to be there with me each and every day, to ride along with me, to be a part of that journey. So, you know, every support counts, whether it's your dollar, whether it's your like, whether it's a share. It doesn't matter to me. As long as you're there with me during this journey, that's all I care about. And we got so many great things happening, and that we're going to be doing over these next couple of months, God willing. So make sure y'all continue to support us, blackstarnetwork.com, and make sure y'all go check us all out on Brother Roland Martin's YouTube page, Facebook page, everywhere that you see Black Star Network. Make sure you support us. Watch all of the shows. Check out Balanced Life. Check out Black Table. I got a special guest coming tomorrow. Because guess what? I'm part of a network. I'm part of a family here, Black Star. So when you see some brilliance in one space, you got to share that brilliance in another space. We got a special guest coming tomorrow. So y'all want to tune in 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, because we got a special guest. I'm so excited. So make sure y'all tune in. All right. Stay tuned up at the 6 o'clock hour Eastern Standard Time. Of course, is my big brother Roland Martin with Roland Martin Unfiltered. Thank you again for tuning in. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow, 3 o'clock, folks. Join me for my very special guest. We have a very big conversation talking about what is going on with Harvard University and their admittance of their role in race in slavery and how they plan to deal with this issue. We're going to have a very special guest to talk about it. So tune in tomorrow right here on The Culture, only found, exclusively heard, and seen on the Black Star Network. Thank you for tuning in, folks. Have a great evening. Peace.